The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When Jesus went into the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" They replied, "Some say John the Baptist, others Elijah, still others Jeremiah or one of the prophets." He said to them, "But who do you say that I am?" Simon Peter said in reply, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." Jesus said to him in reply, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, for flesh and blood has not revealed this to you, but my heavenly Father. And so I say to you, you are Peter, and upon this rock I will build my church, and the gates of the netherworld shall not prevail against it. I will give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven." The Gospel of the Lord. When I was growing up, there was a song that was very popular at dances or on the radio. It was by a Scottish group called the Proclaimers, and the chorus of the song goes like this: "And I will walk 500 miles, and I will walk 500 more, just to be the man who walks 1,000 miles to fall down at your door." It's a beautiful song. It's actually a great love song. It's a song about how far we will go when we're in love with someone. And it's often when we don't have love in our life, that's when we got to sit around doing nothing. But if you love something, if you love someone, you'll do anything. You'll get off your couch and go 1,000 miles for them. I recently read an article comparing this song to the story of the British Catholic author Hilaire Belloc. Hilaire Belloc was living in the 1890s as a young student in England. And all of a sudden, this young lady shows up, this Catholic young lady from America. Her name was Elodie Hogan, and the two of them fell in love. She was there visiting England with her mother from America, and Hilaire Belloc was just smitten by this young lady, and he was heartbroken when she and her mother went back home to America. So much so that in an act of desperate love, he decided to sell everything that he had, and he bought a steamship passage across the Atlantic. He ended up in New York Harbor, and he realized, wait a minute, Elodie actually lives in California, 3,000 miles away. America's a lot bigger country than England. And so he somehow made his way across the continent. He did some train rides, but he walked largely across the whole continent, walked to the Napa Valley, and fell down at Elodie's door. Elodie's mother wasn't quite sure what to make of this eccentric Englishman showing up to her door in California, but there was a courtship. They fell in love more deeply. They got married and ended up having 5 children. So after a love story like that, no offense to the Proclaimers, but walking 500 miles is just not that impressive. I wonder if St. Peter and St. Paul ever compared how much they walked for Jesus. After all, they were madly in love with Jesus. Talk about two men head over heels in love. Those two men, when they met Jesus, that completely changed their life. Their life was never the same again. St. Peter had met him along the shores of Galilee as a fisherman, and all of a sudden he was being a fisher of men. And St. Paul met Jesus along the road to Damascus when he was going to persecute the church. And he was knocked off his horse, and his life was never the same again. These two men ended up walking over the entire Roman Empire to tell others about Jesus. And fortunately, at the time, there was all these great Roman roads. You could get anywhere you went, but you pretty much did have to walk. And these two men were very different from each other. In fact, there was a little bit of a rivalry, a friendly rivalry, or a heated rivalry sometimes. They didn't always understand each other. They were so different from one another. But they both did amazing things for Jesus. And they both ended up in Rome at the center of the empire at the end of their life. And by tradition, they died on the same day in the year 67 AD on June 29th. St. Paul was a Roman citizen, so he was beheaded just outside the city. And Peter was crucified in a much more public way in a Roman arena inside the city on Vatican Hill. But they both gave their life for Christ. And nobody has greater love than to lay down your life for the one you love. I can just imagine St. Peter and St. Paul as these old men in Rome at the end of their life comparing notes. And, maybe St. Paul saying to Peter, Pete, if you were to add up all the missionary journeys, all the walking that I did for Jesus, it would actually be 10,000 miles. I walked 10,000 miles to get here to Rome. I walked across Israel. I walked across Syria. I walked across Turkey. I walked across Greece. I walked across Italy to get here. And let me tell you, it was difficult. I was often waylaid by robbers. I was stoned a couple times. Someone beat me with rods. I was shipwrecked twice trying to cross the sea. I experienced nakedness and cold and hunger and weariness, but I kept going. And now I can truly say here at the end of my life, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. And Peter could turn to Paul and say, that's pretty impressive there, Paulie. And that's I don't know if I walked 10,000 miles, I have to say, but, I walked with Jesus himself. For 3 years I walked with Jesus all around Israel. He brought us up the mountain where I saw his majestic glory. Oh yeah, I think you were persecuting us during that time. And, I walked everywhere, and I ended up walking all the way here to Rome. After all, I am the rock on which Jesus said he would build his church. And so I came here to be the first bishop of Rome. And did I even mention, by the way, I even walked on water. Well, I don't know if there was such a rivalry, really, but I think the two of them just went all out to try to bring as many people to Jesus, to walk anywhere they were called to walk, to help people understand the love that they had for Jesus. That's a beautiful thing. And now you can go to Rome and visit the tomb of these two great apostles. They're really the foundation of our Roman Catholic faith. Someone else who loved the Roman Catholic faith was Hilaire Belloc. After he moved back to Europe with Elodie and started his family, he was praying in a church near his hometown in northern France, where he was born. And he had this sudden inspiration. He said, I walked 3,000 miles across the continent for Elodie, but what can I do for Jesus? And he had this inspiration. Saying my prayers in the church, I noticed behind the high altar a statue of Our Lady, so extraordinary and so different from all that I had seen before that I was quite taken out of myself. And I vowed a vow there to go to Rome on pilgrimage and see all of Europe which the Christian faith had saved. And I said, I will start from this place, and I will walk all the way and take advantage of no wheeled thing. I will sleep rough and cover 30 miles a day, and I will hear Mass every morning, and I will be present at High Mass in St. Peter's on the feast of St. Peter and St. Paul. That's the beginning of his famous book, The Path to Rome, and it was kind of he was known for doing rash things, if you haven't figured it out yet. He just went for it because he loved so much. And he probably regretted later on this vow of walking the whole way to Rome over the Alps. But he did it. And you can read the book if you want to find out if he made it in time to the tomb of the two apostles by their feast day. But that's what love causes us to do. Love causes us to dare great things we would never dare otherwise. To climb any mountain, to cross any stream, to dare any great adventure, because we love. And that's what Peter and Paul had. That's what we should have as Christians, whoever we are. Peter and Paul were so different from one another, and we're probably different from both of them in our own way. We have our own gifts, our own unique personality, but God wants to use that. And the opportunities we have to love and to serve, the most important thing is to love, because it's Christian love that compels us forward. We maybe never get to Rome and, see the tomb of the two apostles. If you have a chance, go for it. But we can find ways to walk with Jesus wherever we're at. Maybe you want to come on the Shrines of Boston pilgrimage that we're having in a few weeks. We're going down to the city of Boston, and all by train and by foot. We're going to walk around and see all these great pilgrimage sites. St. Clement's Shrine, St. Francis Shrine, St. Anthony's Shrine, Cannolis in the North End, all these great places to go see. Come. But, if you get a chance to go on a bigger pilgrimage, go sometime. Just go for it. It's wonderful to see these great sites where the apostles, the founders of our faith, were at. If you ever go to Rome, there's a church over by the Colosseum. It's called San Pietro in Vincoli, St. Peter in Chains. And in fact, people go there all the time because it has the statue of Michelangelo's famous statue of Moses is in that church, so people go see it. But the real reason the church is important is because behind the high altar is the relics of the chains of St. Peter. The same chains that we read about in our reading today, those double chains that fell from the wrist of St. Peter when he was in prison at the word of an angel. And in the 4th century, the Bishop of Jerusalem gave to the Pope in Rome, Pope Leo I, these chains as a gift in recognition of the centrality of Rome as the place of where Peter and Paul gave their life for the faith. And the entire chain is in this church in Rome, except for one link of the chain. And there's one link of the chain that is in, of all places, Rutland, Vermont. And so if you're going around New England on vacation this summer, go to Rutland, Vermont. And in the church there's one link of the chain. Now, why is it in Rutland, Vermont? Well, in 1894, the Bishop of Burlington, Vermont, made a pilgrimage to Rome. And he was so moved by the tombs of the apostles, Peter and Paul, and he was so moved by the chain in the Church of St. Peter in Chains, that he asked the Pope at the time, Pope Leo XIII, if he could have one link of the chain. And the Pope was so impressed by the faith and the love of this rural bishop in America that he gave him one link of the chain, and he brought it back home to Rutland, Vermont. So you can go see it if you want. And if you can, I think it's probably only 100 miles to Rutland. You probably walk there if you want. And after all, what's 100 miles when you're in love?